Welcome to Creative Writing Energy, conversations about the writer's life, craft, and alternative practices with Kim Peterson and Catherine Evans. Hi, Kath, how are you?
Good, thanks, Kim. How are you? Welcome to episode 11.
Yay, episode 11, landmark episode. What is the creative prompt today? You've picked this one. Do you want to tell everyone what that is?
Describe a facial expression in words or with a paint or a drawing.
Nice practicing those creative skills.
That's it.
Yeah.
And writing, it's hard to describe facial expressions sometimes, so it's good to practice.
Yeah, for sure. It's good. So today we are talking about the value of an apology with Hoedt. He is the creator and host of the Hardest Word podcast. But first, we're just going to quickly do our creativity, our oracle prompts. What do we call them, Kath? Sorry.
The oracle cards?
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
All right. I'm the Trust Your Vibes, as usual.
Mm-hmm.
And our card for today is Call on Your Angels.
Nice.
And yours?
My card? Okay, I've shuffled. Oh, I like this one. Abundance.
Oh.
Yeah. I am a limitless being and I can manifest whatever I desire in this physical reality. Maybe through the art of apology.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah.
Might need your angels to help with it too.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think apologizing can be very difficult for some people. What do you think, Brett? Like, you want to tell us a little bit about your podcast and the plans?
Sure.
No,
Happy to.
Cool.
The podcast features a different person apologizing each episode. So it's real people making real apologies. And the episodes are very short, it most lasts for 5 minutes. And we have an incredible range of apologies from around the world, from the Gaza Strip to Rwanda to America to England to Europe. And they are people making apologies. Sometimes they're really serious and heavy apologies. Sometimes they're light. The very first apology, the first season, was a young girl who was 6 years of age apologizing for giving her doll an unauthorized haircut. Actually, it was her sister's doll, and the sister was very unhappy. So that was cute. And the last apology of series 1 was a man in Rwanda apologizing for not saving the life of his neighbor during the 1994 genocide. So we've had a total range. And some apologies are very funny and cleverly written, and they're not even genuine apologies. They're sort of sarcastic apologies. We had a woman in India apologizing to womanhood for not realizing the potential of womanhood in what she finds to be very sexist and restrictive culture. So we have people apologizing to books, to pets, to laptop computers, to their countries, to their long-lost fathers and mothers, a whole range of apologies from a whole range of people. They're all real apologies.
They're really yeah, cool. So, what was the idea behind this? Where did the thought come from to create a podcast like this?
A few different things sort of aligned themselves. I'm a public speaking trainer, so I get requests to train often, CEOs or leaders or whatever, to speak at conferences, to speak to their staff. But then recently there's been more call as part of that to teach people how to apologize. And I remember the first time I got asked to do that, it felt strange, but there were some high profile apologies in the media and in politics and in business. And now every CEO or anyone who takes themselves seriously thinks, oh, one day I might have to do that. So I started getting those calls. And then what sort of topped it off was Serena Williams in the US Open tennis final. She had pretty much a meltdown mid-match in the final and screamed at the umpire, pointing her finger at him, saying, I demand an apology. So we're in this era where, thanks to social media, generally people are demanding apologies more. Probably more are being given, but they're less likely to be believed at any point in time. So it's an interesting time for apologies. And of course, YouTube stars are always making tearful apologies to other YouTube stars who they've hurt. So there's just a lot of apologizing going on. But I think the whole dynamic has broken down in the apology economy, if you like, where someone sincerely gives an apology, they are sincerely accepted, and we move forward. I don't think that happens very much. So I thought it'd make for an interesting podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So what are the characteristics of a sincere apology?
Well, hopefully they're unprompted. You know, if someone has
Yes.
to, you know, if I have to launch a social media campaign against you, Catherine, you know, demanding an apology, even if you were to actually give me that apology, yeah, it might not mean so much. So sincere, you know, self, you know, promoted. Quick is really important for an apology, because it's like you have a moment in time to make things right. It's like a stain on your clothing. The longer you leave that stain there, the harder it is to remove. Also, I think the words are important. You know, words like "I'm sorry," "I was wrong," "I apologize" mean a lot to the person getting that apology. You see apologies, and I'm talking about on a one-to-one scale in the family or in a small workplace, or public apology, which are full of things like "I regret if I hurt you, blah, blah, blah." So the apology's got to be, it's not the correct use of the word, but fulsome. It's got to be genuine and warm and freely given. And here's one tip to take your apology to the next level: don't explain. Yeah, it's really tempting to say, "Catherine, I'm so sorry. You know, I was a bit short with you at that meeting the other day in front of our colleagues. I should have considered your idea better. But you know what?" And leave it at that. But then what I want to say is, "Catherine, at the moment, oh my God, my kid's sick and she's up half the night. I haven't slept properly. We've also got that big project that I've got to deliver on, and I'm trying to get everything done before the half-year mark." And excuses. Well, they might to me seem like really good reasons, and actually they might be. But to you, Catherine, if I owe you the apology, it's going to sound like I'm minimizing things or rationalizing. So resist the urge to explain. So, you know, motivated, full, use some right words. And also, by the way, try and make amends. Do something before you even apologize that sets the reconciliation on its path. You know, so that might be, and we are now, you know, paying back all our underpaid workers, you know, or we are, you know, writing letters to everyone who's been impacted by our bad practice. It's incredible how often people don't want to do that. So there's a mix of things that make a good apology.
Yeah. Kath, you had something that you wanted to ask. Right.
Yeah, for writers, when we're using words to convey sincerity, do you have any tips for how to write a sincere apology, or the reaction to a sincere apology?
Short and simple. You know, it should be I. So short, again, minimizes the chance you're going to explain or rationalize or justify your behavior. Make it direct, you know, use the person's name. I have seen this also. The best sort of corporate apologies use the word I. You know, the CEO doesn't get away with saying we or the organization. You say I. And I saw an apology the other day that was in words, not writing, but the principle remains. The CEO was apologizing. I was thinking to myself, why is she still here as CEO if all this bad stuff has happened? But later on, she revealed that that was the previous CEO. But she took ownership of the problem to such a degree that I thought she was speaking on her behalf. Whereas a weaker person in her position would have said, well, it wasn't me. It was that previous CEO, John blah, blah. But so she took personal responsibility. She used, she took full responsibility, which is very impressive. So short, sweet, sincere. Also, one thing I've seen done is ask or make the point to the reader that it's up to you to accept my apology or not.
Yeah.
Because I think it can be very annoying when someone's treated you badly. I've seen this in workplaces. I've worked in some horrific workplaces, and you might very occasionally get some sort of half-hearted apology, and it's sort of a given that the apology will be accepted. You know, that's for the recipient to decide as well. And I think that's a nice touch. You know, whether you choose or not to accept my apology, consider it sincerely offered. Something along those lines. But and get it in early.
And that's the thing, apologies aren't always accepted either, are they?
Absolutely not. And that has been totally forgotten in this current apology-obsessed era that, in theory, I mean, the apology is a really bizarre concept. If you think about it, you know, I will voluntarily offer you an apology and you will, with goodwill, accept it. And then we move forward as if pretty much nothing ever happened. Now, that's an old gentleman's agreement, you know, and this is not the era we want, but that's the deal. If you accept an apology, you should also, by the way, say those words, I accept your apology. I don't know if it sounds too formal for people, but make it clear. And what comes with that is and now we move forward. Fresh.
Yeah,
It's a fresh start.
Yeah.
Correct. I dare say that most of the people demanding an apology are not willing to accept the apology when it's given. Whether it's Serena Williams or me down at the local bakery and I'm unsatisfied or whatever. That's the deal, though. It's a very old-fashioned concept. That's what sort of interests me about it. It's like no matter how silly the bet you make is, if you lose the bet, you got to pay the bet.
Yeah.
You don't welch on a bet. It's a code. We're not going to get the cops involved. But if you get an apology, either accept it or don't. Say, I'm sorry, I don't accept your apology for whatever reason. Good luck with that. Or else you accept it and move on. I think there's a lot of things in the middle where people sort of say, oh, yeah, okay. And you sort of pretend to accept the apology, you pretend to give it, and you pretend to move forward with a clean slate. That's not very good.
The whole pretending thing. And I think there's a lot of non-apologists, that just don't want to go there. I mean, maybe by admitting that it's sort of guilt or shame around it.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think there are, I've worked with them and I've met them, I'm sure you have both as well. People who, I think it'd be fair to say, go through their entire lives without making an apology. On a big scale or small, whether it's to your one workmate or your son or daughter or your husband or wife or to your, whole institution that you head up or whatever, they never do. It's a sign of weakness. You're absolutely right.
It is a sign of weakness because it takes a lot of strength or, and inner strength and ownership, I guess, owning your actions.
It absolutely does. And that's why I think apologies are are being offered sincerely less commonly, because it does take empathy to offer an apology. Oh, I have offended you, Catherine, and I realize that on my own, and I will make an apology to you. So that's number one. I don't think there's much empathy going around. And then you have to get very humble to say, you know what, I stuffed up, Kim, I apologize. Yeah. So empathy and humility are in short supply these days, as is forgiveness on the other side of the debate. So I think that's what makes apologies weird and interesting. And also, of course, they're very intimate. We have apologies. I just recorded an apology this week with a guy in Seattle whose father was never on the scene. His mother got pregnant, the father left to start several more families in a similar fashion. And on his 7th birthday, the boy used to get a call once a year at Christmas from the father. And on his 7th birthday, he got a call and he said, I never want to talk to you, Dad, again. You're a bad man. We don't love you. We don't like you. You've never done it. At 7. Anyway, at age 37, he looks up his father and finds him. And the boy calls the father to apologize to the father for saying that at 7 and locking him out of his life. And the guy said to me, it was incredibly freeing to him to make the apology to his father who had abandoned him.
Yeah. And
I said in the interview, by the way, did the father ever return the apology to you and say, well, actually, son, you've got nothing to apologize? I said, no. And it wasn't important to me. I wasn't expecting it. And I didn't get it. I don't care. We now have a good relationship. I mean, honestly, you don't get conversations like that every day. And there's a guy, he runs an insurance broker's company, and he's not a, touchy-feely necessarily guy, but this apology meant so much to him to give, and it's made his life so much better. So
yeah,
he's living proof that apologies do matter when they're sincerely given.
For sure. For sure. And it's so freeing. It frees your soul, and like you said on the other side of the token, accepting the apologies, because I've had a similar background with my mother kind of leaving when I was younger and this and that, and my brother and I have really taken different roads, whereas I've chosen to kind of move on and forgive and have her, where he hasn't. And it's really interesting to see just the way your lives can kind of fork out when being able to express and forgive and apologize and all that kind of thing. It's the stuff that makes us human, and vulnerable, and it's the good stuff. Good for
you're absolutely right.
No.
I mean, and you've got an experiment there in a sense that you and your brother have taken different approaches, and both are justified. But, what do they say? Staying bitter and angry is like taking poison and hoping the other person dies. It doesn't work to hold on to that. And I'm not good at this, by the way. I'm just interested in the podcast that comes out of it. I'm not better at apologizing or receiving or taking apologies than anyone else, but it's really important. And by the way, I should add that the apology I was just talking about, when the father and the son finally united for a lunch, along with the father was his new wife that he's been together with for 30 years or something. And the wife took aside the son and said, "Thank you. Now my husband can die in peace." Because for all of those years, some almost 30 years, despite the fact that he didn't reach out to the son and he didn't make amends, the son finally said, the son's apology still meant so much that he was at peace with the world and at peace with his life. So
it was still kind of eating at him in the background.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you think apologies are like a sign that people need to change or want to change?
Well, that's a good point. I think if you're apologizing about the same sort of stuff, I think there's change to be made. If you're continually apologizing for losing your temper, or spending all your money that you should be spending elsewhere, or infidelities or whatever it is. Yeah, I think actually that's a very good way to think of it. Apologies are a sign that something has to change. Otherwise, you're just going to be doing a lot of apologizing, or at least hurting a lot of people. Absolutely, I think it's a sign of that.
Yeah,
it's an opportunity for growth. Some other people who have apologized. In fact, the man who apologized from Rwanda for not saving the life of his neighbor, and by the way, that neighbor he knew and liked well. The neighbor's 6 children and wife had been murdered. The neighbor is knocking on his door saying, "Let me in. They are coming to get me," and they were. And he and the apologizer and his wife had to decide whether to let this man in. And of course, to do that would put them in the firing line, and they would have been part of the 900,000 people who died. And in a split second, they had to make that decision, and they decided not to. And that's haunted him since 1994. And but he said making the apology on the podcast was hugely freeing for him as well. He said from that day, he felt better than he had since 1994 about that decision. So the apologies can be a sign to change, or just very freeing. And in a sense, who even cares about what the recipient of the apology feels? It's actually probably means more to the giver, and more than the giver ever realizes it's going to give. It's like giving money. It makes you feel good to give.
Yes, it is. It's given to yourself in a way, in a sense. Yeah, it's definitely more of a personal growth thing for sure. So the people that come on your podcast and do this, what do you think they get out of actually making their apologies publicly like this? Like, do you think it's any different, or?
It's different for different people because the apologies range. They're not all heavy and super serious. I've had fantastic apologies. For some, I suspect it's a bit of almost a writing exercise. There was a guy in India who apologized to a mosquito for killing the mosquito. And of course, it's a sarcastic apology, but he worded it so cleverly. We didn't know he was talking about a mosquito till the last line.
Oh, no.
And so it was a writing exercise for him. It was sincere and was very clever. Then for other people, it's literally lifting a burden that is weighing down on them on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it's making a bit of a point as well. I've had a woman in a Middle European country apologize to misogyny. Now, why would a woman apologize to misogyny? But of course, for her, it was a sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek apology for not yielding to the demands of the misogynists out there. So, it's a range. I mean, one of the saddest ones I find was a woman in Bangladesh who apologized to dancing. She loved to dance until she married into a family where it was no longer appropriate for a married woman to dance. So she's lost one of the few loves of her life, and she feels, in a sense, guilty to dance. But of course, it was also her way of talking about the plight of women in that country, in that culture, as was the Indian apology I had last week. So there's a lot of people making different statements. And I think people also feel excited in this internet age about revealing something very intimate to the world but also keeping some anonymity, because some people apologize anonymously, others are totally open about who they are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it ranges. And I
Yeah.
think people have an audience. I know I do.
Oh, you do. We're in that kind of oversharing age, aren't we?
Oh boy.
Sharing
So,
everything.
someone said that to me when I was thinking about this idea, and she said, "Are you crazy? People love to overshare. Take advantage of it." And I do.
Yeah, we all do it in some way lately, I think, don't we, Kath?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, if people listening want to go and make an apology, where should they go, and how do you do it?
I would love them to apologize, because I'm totally dependent on apologies. No apologies, no show. So the website is thehardestwordpodcast.com. And you can listen to all the shows there, whether you're a podcaster or not. And you can also make your apology via the website, and it'll give you all the details. They're short and sharp. Most apologies are 2.5 or 3 minutes, 500 or 600 words. You don't have to record it. If you don't want your voice to be used, you can write it, send it to me, and I find a person to voice it with the right accent, and so on and so forth. So some people, record it all and give their name and address. And I wouldn't do that. And I recommend people don't. I had a mother in Virginia, US, apologize to her less favorite child. And I made sure that her name was not given, because even though she was being honest, and she had moved on from that period, but she said the first 18 months or so, she did not love this child as much as her previous child. And that's a controversial statement in the world of mothering to make,
Yeah,
and so I didn't want
a big thing to admit, isn't it?
Open criticism.
Mm.
Yeah. So you can you can go to the website and make your apology. You can listen to all the other apologies as well.
I have to say, it's kind of like a ripple effect, what you're doing. Because a lot of times people will, they'll hear other people expressing themselves in that way and apologizing, and then it's like, throwing a pebble in a pond, and the ripple's sort of going out and kind of bringing positivity to the world a bit,
Oh, that's a nice thought, isn't it? I would love to get more feedback from the people who have been the subject of the apology. I would love to hear back from people who have heard the apology, realized it was for them, and to talk to them. So I'm chasing a few of those at the moment.
Yeah,
and I'm also I hope so. It'd be lovely to think that something good has come out of it. I know something good has come out of it for the people who made the apologies.
Yeah.
But of course, who knows about the other half?
Yeah,
they might be peeved. I had a woman in India apologize to her fiance because she is only interested in the sex. So, I don't know how that guy feels. And she said, "I know you love me so much, but I don't feel it the same way. I'm just in it for the physical stuff. And so I want to hear from him."
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
You might break
Yeah,
up.
Yeah. That was the object of the podcast, Catherine, when I started. It is, it's not, I think when you hear about the idea of the show, it sounds like it's all going to be tears and, worthiness. And I make a point to, when there's a chance for levity or lightness, I put that in. We have a mix.
Yeah.
Can I ask about the man who killed the monkey? Have you heard back from him about whether he got a sign?
I have not heard back from Dennis. That is definitely one of the very most remarkable apologies. Started off season 2 a little while ago from Kenya. And Dennis sent me the most passionate apology I have received. It's him, it's his name, it's his voice, it's, and as you said,
like he's crying.
He absolutely sounds in tears, doesn't he? I have had some tears in a few apologies, and he had killed the monkey because the monkey was eating his father's bananas, just the same way we do with rats or possums or something here sometimes. And he felt terrible about it. But what took it to the next level was that he really wants a sign from beyond the monkey's grave, because he buried the monkey, that there has been forgiveness. And for some strange reason, he went to, started talking about Jewish mythology. He wants a sign. What do I do to make this better? And he started talking about priests and signs from beyond the grave. I said this in the podcast, I really hope he gets that sign. That would be fantastic.
I bet he does.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
Kim, I hope you're right. I really do, because I don't know. I think everything's sort of possible, and it would mean a lot to Dennis, because Dennis is very upset with himself for doing what he did. that she feels was unjustified. And when he said, I said, that's so well written as well. These people are writing in sometimes their second or third language, but often it's brilliant. And he said, it took just one day for me to take you from being a happy monkey, to dead. He phrases it better than I recall it. But it was very moving, that apology. It was just, and it's unlike anything you will hear anywhere else. So I was very pleased with that. And it's absolutely sincere.
Yeah. It just goes to, show how much compassion people really do have. I mean, just for and respect for other living creatures, not just, humans and things, because I'm running out of time. So it's really moving. I listened to that one, so yeah.
Oh, you are absolutely right about, you realize what's going on in people's minds, or you realize that there's a lot going on in people's minds. The woman who can't dance, the man who feels bad about the monkey, the woman who she's now a 50-year-old woman who still feels guilty because at 15 years of age or so, her mother gave her a letter to post to her grandmother. She did not do it, typical 15-year-old. Well, the reason why that letter was being sent was that the grandmother was very, very ill. And it was the last letter between this woman's mother and the grandmother, and it was never sent. Oh. And when the mother asked the teenage daughter way back when, did you send that letter to your grandmother? She said, yeah, and lied, then went to her school bag and tore up the letter for some reason. And in the meantime, between when the letter should have been sent and arrived, the grandmother died, never getting the final letter from her own daughter. And now 35 years later, she's making an apology, and she actually breaks up into tears mid-interview. Yeah. And I remember that one got me as well. And it got me into tears hearing it. A regret from 35 years ago because some dumb young teenager, and I was the same, didn't do the task that the parents wanted to, didn't care back then. Now, of course, realizes, the last thing that woman would have ever seen.
It was. Yeah.
Oh, my God. And I'm trying to track down that woman's mother to find out whether she accepts the apology or not. So that's to come in a future episode.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I mean, it's so relatable, all these things. I think it's great. It's great. It's what makes us, sort of brings us, enables us to bond and relate to each other. It's good. It's great. Yeah.
It's no surprise that women supply me about 85% of the apologies I receive, by the way.
Oh,
I don't know,
really?
what do you two read into that?
Yes. Kath?
A gender disparity?
I think that's a good old-fashioned gender disparity. Yeah, 85, 90%, I think.
Wow. Yeah, the other one that I remember quite clearly that moved me was the guy, was he in Lebanon, who was apologising to his first car for selling it with all its memories?
He was a Russian guy out of St. Petersburg, and he wrote that apology to his first car. If you didn't know it was a car, you'd think it was a woman.
Yeah.
Because, we have so many memories. You always understood me. When I was down, you were reliable. When you were reliable. And the sadness waving that car goodbye, and again, wasn't that well written? It was clever, memories meshed in every gear, and it was fantastic. But that's a light-hearted one, and it's relatable. I stupidly felt guilty when I, sold my first car, which was a bomb, but it meant a lot to me,
Yeah, your first car's important.
Correct. And the new car doesn't understand him the way the old car did. I'm sure he was talking about wives, but he's still married to the girl he used to drive around in that car. But that was just a charmer and a great voice too. You hear great accents, great accents.
That was him doing that too.
Yeah. What a voice.
Mm.
No, it's charming. And it just shows the breadth of people's experiences, and some of them from the other side of the world are extremely relatable. But then on the other hand, I don't know any of my friends who can't dance, or, can't wear the clothes they want, or, et cetera, et cetera. So it and the woman in China apologizing for telling her sister to get an abortion, because abortion is very common. And now she's raising that child as her own.
Yeah.
And she's apologizing to that child for what she had advised. I mean, incredible stuff. But sometimes it shows the similarity we all have. And sometimes I think it also shows the differences we have culturally as well. And I find that interesting.
Extremely interesting. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we should probably get this wrapped up. How did your card go, Kath?
Call on your angels.
Yeah. What do you make of that, Brett?
Now,
In the realm of apologies.
well, as I just understand that phrase, I think it's something we should do more early, more often. Call for help and seek assistance, and that's something that some of us aren't very good at doing. I don't think that's not a strength of mine. I'd rather help someone else if that's what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. And my one, abundance. And abundance isn't always financial either. It comes in many forms, doesn't it, Kath?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And apologies probably give you abundance, don't they? They free you up for more.
I think that's true.
You
let something go, and then you can grasp something else. That's very true. Something better, hopefully.
Yeah. Right. So, Kath, you want to tell everyone where they can find us?
Yeah. It was fascinating to talk to you, Brett. I'm glad that we found your podcast, or you found us.
Likewise.
Thanks for joining in our conversation. If you want to subscribe to Creative Writing Energy on your preferred podcast platform or on YouTube, you'll get notifications of when our episodes are available. And if you'd like more information, you can find us at whisperinginkpress.com/creative writing energy.
Nice. Okay. Thank you so much, Brett, for joining us and talking about your great podcast. We love it.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
We'll have to follow up with you sometime in the future to see if you got hold of the recipients and see what.
Absolutely. I'm also talking to US prisoners at the moment, so we'll get some interesting apologies.
Oh, nice. Interesting. Cool. Is that season 3 coming up?
Yes, I think that'll be a special season if I can get them.
Cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
I've got some people.
Do you have to go over to interview, or they're going to send them in?
I think they'll probably, they can all write it in, and some have technology to record it, but I'd love to go over there and record it direct. That would be really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see what apologies you get.
Yeah, yes. I think some could be very heavy, but they don't have to be about the crime. It could be, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what they'll apologize? They'll have plenty of apologies to give, and this, the person told me, and plenty of time to give them as well.
Yes, definitely. Alrighty. Well, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Guys. Thank you. Catch you later.
Farewell.
Bye.